sorry, but is saying I'm sorry enough to charge someone with murder? Georgia teen Sarah Grace Patrick is accused of killing her mom and stepdad in their sleep. The case of the TikTok teen became well known due in part to her posts about their murders on social media. That and her digital footprint are what made her a suspect, according to the prosecutors. Take a listen.
Jamie and Mama would have thanked y'all too. I love you guys, and so do I. And so do they. I'm sorry. Thanks for listening to me.
So, I'm sorry for what? Was that an I'm sorry I did it? I'm sorry I committed murder. I'm sorry I found my parents brutally murdered. Or I'm sorry I will never see them again. Or maybe I'm sorry because I'm not delivering this eulogy the way I want to. And will any of it even matter at trial? We're going to dig into the case of Sarah Grace Patrick and why her grandfather says that he's standing behind her. I'm criminal trial attorney Sara Azari, and this is Serving Justice, where we dig into what really matters in a criminal case, the defense. We are back from a hiatus in our new home, our studio, and today we're going to go past the speculation you see all over social media to take a closer look at this case and what the defense might look like for Sarah Grace Patrick. Joining me now is NewsNation's Safia Samee Ali, who's dialed into the very latest in this case and also brings us precedent and context as always, and my friend of show, former prosecutor Dave Aronberg. Thank you guys for joining me today. All right, let's get right to it. We actually have the charging document in this case. So I want to take a look at what we know so far. Not a whole lot of information, Dave. You and I have seen a lot of these. You've drafted them. And I was looking for some sort of probable cause affidavit, something, because she went to a bond hearing and she's basically got no bond. She's behind bars, standing trial. So we don't really know a lot. We don't know a lot about the evidence in this case. And I think that we have some elements from TikTok about this girl and some of the posts that she's made. She's charged with malice murder, meaning she had a specific intent to kill, maybe not premeditated or planned, but there was intent there. And we know that we have 2 counts of felony murder as well as possession of a firearm. We know that the police thought her I'm sorry at the eulogy was a little strange. Dave, what are your thoughts? What does the prosecution have to prove to find her guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of murder?
Well, you need a lot more than probable cause. So to get an arrest, you need probable cause. That's a much lower burden than prosecutors need to convict someone. And that's why I'm eagerly awaiting the evidence. Obviously, it looks bad for her. I mean, it was perplexing that she was apologizing at the funeral, and also her parents' statements on TikTok to try to gain publicity for this murder. It's bizarre. And, when you have an arrest like this, law enforcement has to have something. It's just that I guess under Georgia law, they don't have to show you at this point. They cannot hold her. They cannot keep behind bars unless they had probable cause. So it's tough to convince the judge at the least, but I don't know where it is. I'm looking for it myself.
But I mean, I'm sorry for what? I'm sorry. I'm 17 years old. I'm never going to see my parents again. I'm sorry I found them brutally murdered in their bed, or that I'm not, living up to how I think the eulogy should be delivered. I mean, I'm sorry yes, I agree with you. Like, it's definitely not enough. And I don't even know they have enough. We're going to talk about what the grandfather has shared so far. I don't even think they have enough, even with what the grandfather knows. But let's just turn for a moment to Safia and some of the cases that have come before this one, where the defendant may have been apologetic and it didn't go a certain way, or maybe it did. Safia, what do you have?
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into it. First case, we've got Alex Murdaugh. Now, he was convicted in the 2021 murders of his wife and son in their South Carolina home. The murder became part of this larger investigation on financial crimes and embezzlement. But at the murder trial, he actually got on the stand himself and said, I'm sorry, a number of times. Now, he was referring to lies that he told his family. He said, quote, I did lie to them, and I'm sorry that I did. And most of all, I'm sorry to Mags and Paul, who were his wife and son. I would never do anything to intentionally hurt either one of them. I don't know why his attorneys thought this was a good idea, but he must have thought they were trying to humanize him, make him seem like he was a grieving father who made mistakes. Obviously, prosecutors turned that into this person can't be trusted. He's already
Right.
admitted to lying. He said, I'm sorry. He was convicted eventually to 2 consecutive life sentences to the murder of his wife. And
Yeah, I
son.
mean, but you know, there was actually Dave and I, fun fact, Dave and I met over the Murdoch case. We were at CNN doing a
right.
segment together, right, Dave? There
Right.
was so much more than just his I'm sorry that got him convicted. There was I think there was a lot of you know, things that should not have been admitted, evidence that was, and obviously he has a pretty good chance on appeal right now. But Dave, what's your reaction to Alec Murdaugh's I'm sorry on the
Well,
stand?
Alec Murdaugh had a lot to apologize for because he lied through his teeth. I mean,
Right.
he didn't just commit the murders. He was apologizing for his lies because he had lied about being at the kennel at the time. He said he wasn't anywhere near there. The kennel's where the murders happened. And then all of a sudden the video came out where his voice was there at the kennel. So he had to explain that. And really, I think the I'm sorry was to the jury, is really more to the jury. I'm sorry, jurors. I lied to you. I didn't mean to. Yes, you did. And you're a sociopath.
Yeah, and I'm not lying to you now, I promise you. But
Right.
but he also, I think, was apologetic for having ripped off so many people, right? Because all those people were victims in the murder trial, even though they were victims of financial crimes that he committed. What else do you have, Safia?
Yeah. Okay. So we've got O.J. Simpson. Now, he wrote this note that's widely been interpreted as his suicide note, which was found in the Ford Bronco that, of course, he drove during that chase on the highway in 1994. This note was found by his attorney in the car, later read it at a press conference. In that note, he apologizes to the Goldman family. Now, Ron Goldman was one of the victims. Nicole Brown Simpson, his ex-wife, was the other victim. But he actually writes, quote, "I'm sorry for the Goldman family. I know how much it hurts." Now, prosecutors opted not to use the note as evidence at trial, which has been debated on whether or not that was a good move. Now, whether or not it was going to be admitted, that's a whole other story, but we've got another, I'm sorry.
So a couple things. What do you say when someone passes away and, you know, and you're trying to express your condolences? I'm sorry for your loss, right?
You say, I'm
Yes.
sorry? Yeah.
I mean, I
That's
think to
traditionally,
me
yeah.
this was to me I think this was more of a I would prefer OJ not say a word, but I mean to me this was more innocuous than anything that the prosecutors could have used. And by the way, the glove don't fit, you must have quit. Remember that?
That was a bigger problem for prosecutors than
Right.
not putting on the I'm sorry letter. So yeah, they were in trouble by a lot of their mistakes they made during that trial.
Exactly. And we were in a different, I mean, there was the race it was a different time. There was the race card. There was, you know, DNA was not as advanced as it is today.
Right.
There was a lot of problems.
Right.
But back to the case of Sarah Grace Patrick. Here's what the communications director for Carroll County, Georgia Sheriff's Office told NewsNation's Ashley Banfield about the eulogy. Take a look.
What about that eulogy, Ashley? The eulogy, I found it hard to even understand. We put captioning on the screen because it seemed like she was terribly distraught. Was there anything in the eulogy that stood out to you that was a clue?
I was not personally there. We did have investigators that, of course, went to the funeral. I've said this before, in any situation where we don't make an arrest right away, you know, we always want to be present, not only to support the family through their grief at the funeral, but to make sure that nothing stands out. I will say, to me, just watching it online, you know, I can't tell you if she had real tears. I wasn't there to see it in person, but it seemed odd. It was more like a speech. And at the end, you know, she said, "I'm sorry." Was that, "I'm sorry because I may have done this," or is it, "I'm sorry because I was upset during this eulogy"? We may never know the answer to that, but that did stand out to me at the time.
She finds it really odd, right? She also tells Ashley that Sarah had a large digital footprint. That's been like a big thing in this. What do we, you know, what can we expect in digital footprint? And will the apology alone be enough to charge? I mean, well, she's been charged, but would it be enough alone to convict her, perhaps? Or, you know, what are your thoughts around the digital footprint and how it plays here?
Well, there's no chance that she could be convicted just on the cryptic apology. I mean, a good
Mhm.
defense lawyer like you, Sarah, would rip it to shreds. And then you also have her online presence, which makes her look like a selfish, self-obsessed millennial who just wants publicity, even if it means killing her parent and step parent. So I think they have to have more, even though those two things look bad for her. And I'm sure they do. It's just a question of what it is. Hopefully we'll find that out soon, because I can't imagine a judge would agree not only to an arrest warrant here, but also to hold her behind bars without bond, without some real proof that she did it beyond these two things.
But what constitutes digital footprint? Social media posts, right?
Yeah.
Direct messages, do cell
Well, if she
tower pings also? I mean, this doesn't apply here because she lived in the same house as her parents as the crime scene, so that's not really relevant here. But
There's
that
also,
would
like,
also
Google searches, Sarah. We got
Google
Google
search,
searches.
yes,
We
yes,
got
yes.
text messages, deleted images, emails,
right.
where her phone got pinged. Yeah, I mean, that's it could
All
cover
those are
a
digital.
lot of things.
So we don't really so that doesn't really tell us what they have, you know? I mean, it's really kind of early right now. I do know that there was a big, I mean, there's online chatter about her. She was a TikToker, obviously, but she came on TikTok months after the murders and was sort of back to her posts and posing and all makeup and, you know, looking cute.
Right.
And there's been a lot said about kind of like Lori Vallow on the beach in Hawaii in a wedding dress getting married, you know, well, what kind of post-murder behavior is this? This is weird. To me, you know, months later, when you're a 17-year-old, I don't know, you know, she's 17. I think people grieve differently and, you know, life goes on. I hate to say it, but I mean, what do you think of her post incident, I should say, behavior?
As a former prosecutor, I would use that to show how callous she is. I mean, this is malice murder, and you have someone who's not grieving. And I know we all grieve in our own ways, but you know, to get gussied up and to go on a media tour, essentially. I mean, she wrote apparently to a true crime account on TikTok that
Mm,
we got information. This is going to be huge, that kind of stuff.
mm.
Well, that reeks a little bit of like Menendez brothers after they slaughtered their parents, where they went on a spending spree. They were living a good life. She looked like she was doing a spree of her own, a media spree, something that she wanted to
Fame
do. So,
spree, a fame
a
spree.
fame spree, that's
I mean,
better. Not
you
a
know, but
fame
look,
spree.
fame is a drug, right, Safia? I mean, fame is a drug. I did a whole series on ID, death by fame,
Mhm.
tied murder cases to, you know, people who come to Hollywood to become famous. Um, and and she's 17 and she's a TikToker, and of course she wants attention. I mean, there is that explanation I'm sure the prosecutor is going to offer, but I think also there's this overarching. You brought up Menendez brothers, Dave. Like, there's this overarching, as old as time, the story of a defendant who tries to deflect away from themselves, you know, like, let me look for the killer on social media because then that, you know, diverts the investigation or the focus away from myself, right? It could be that as well. On the other hand, from, you know, defense point of view, where else would you go as a 17-year-old TikToker? You've already called the police. You've already reported to 911. It's not like she did. These are not mutually exclusive. She did that, but she also went on social media. That's where people go to solve crime. Think
But the
about Gabby Petito. If it wasn't for the YouTuber, I don't think the law enforcement would still know that Brian Laundrie was involved.
I would say, Sarah, with the context of her messages, like one of her messages was like, I think this case is going to be a hit. I
Yeah.
think this case is going to be a
Okay.
hit. It wasn't like my mother and father were taken. I
Right.
need justice. It was like, hey, I'm giving you a tip. Look, I'm not saying that's
Yeah.
enough. And like you said, people are different, but the context of it, and Dave, you're a
No, that's
prosecutor.
yeah, look,
That sounds
I
a little
can
fishy to you when you're saying, "Hey, I think we've got a hit show on our
yeah,
hands."
I can see
But
Dave.
We need
the
ratings.
prosecutor-
to
Yeah, I
phrase it.
Dave, the prosecutor, going like, look at her callousness. She's going on there. She's trying to make money off of this. But on the other hand, she's 17. She lost her parents. You know, maybe she knows, you know, crime sells and she's trying to get the focus on the story. I don't know. I mean, I think it's explainable. I'm not mad at it. Okay. I'm not mad at it. It doesn't rise to the level of me going, oh my God, how's this going to get explained? But one blogger told our own Brian Enton something that seemed really off to her. You know, where, you know, an account named Sarah Grace that's saying that the case could be a hit. I think this is what you were referring to, Safia, just now. What do you make of that, Dave? That she has this apparent thirst for fame. She's a TikToker. She's relying on social media and crime sleuths potentially to bring attention to her parents' murder.
Smells like motive to me. That would be your motive. I mean, you have a fight with your parents and you get to achieve your dreams of achieving international fame. It will be international infamy if she did it. And that's different than fame, as she will find out. But her name will be out there for the test.
Yeah, either way, right? Why do you think, Dave, that we don't know more about what this footprint consists of? Like, she was arraigned today. Why is this all a secret?
I don't know how they do it in Georgia compared to Florida. We have sunshine laws where pretty much everything is put out there. But perhaps because the investigation continues, that they're allowed to keep it closer to the vest in Georgia. It is surprising that the public doesn't know anything more than what you saw in that bare bones charge, that indictment, because generally, at least some of the evidence through a probable cause affidavit that gets released to the public. So this is unusual. Maybe there's an exception for an underage defendant. Maybe
because she's a minor, even though she's being tried as an adult. Very good point. Safia, given your coverage of the Karen Reed case and the Delphi murders, how do you think investigators are looking at this digital footprint?
I think it's going to be crucial. I mean, it was crucial in the Karen Reed case. It was crucial in the Delphi murders. That this is how they stitch together timelines. This is how they stitch together whether or not alibis match up. This is how they found, where somebody was at what time. Like we talked about, there's going to be Google searches. There's going to be text messages. They're going to try to see if there's a motive, a method, if there's co-conspirators. Maybe somebody helped her with this. We don't know, right? So that digital.
I think somebody definitely helped her with this. First of all, she's presumed innocent, right? We don't know if she had anything to do with this, but to the extent she may have been involved, there was no forced entry, Safia, into this home. So it was her 5-year-old stepsister, and her parents, her mom and her stepfather. So anyone that would have come in would have been let in. That's a big piece of all this. So, we'll get to that in a second when we go to another very critical victim here, which is Sara's grandfather, Dennis Nolan. He spoke exclusively to NewsNation's Alex Capriello. Let's take a listen to that conversation, and then we'll discuss it on the other side.
It's hard to make any judgment at this point. They have to release the evidence, and I don't understand what evidence they have. I think most of it, from what I understand, is circumstantial. And, she's my granddaughter. I have to stand behind her. And she swears her innocence.
So have you had a chance to speak to the detectives?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've talked to them at length. And they don't release any information. If they had something concrete, they would have arrested her a whole lot sooner. I mean, why wait months after everyone's sort of on hold and waiting to see what evidence they have for saying that Sara did do.
So, Safia, there's a lot to unpack here, right? First off, the police say there's a mountain of evidence, right? And sorry that Dave Aronberg had to go, but can't tell you how many times prosecutors have said that to me, and it ends up being dust. Right? What does that mean? What does that mean, mountain of evidence? Like, what do you have? And that's the thing here, is the problem is, we're going to keep on this case and talk about it as we learn more. But at this time, we don't know what the evidence is. But her grandfather says he believes that Sara, he believes that Sara's innocent, and he doesn't think there's sufficient evidence. Maybe true, maybe not. We don't know. But he's been told that the case is circumstantial, which, most cases are, and they could still get a conviction. He's very much fixated on the fact that there was no gunshot residue on her, and they don't have a murder weapon. Now, what I want to say to that is, you don't need a murder weapon. I feel terrible for this grandfather, because he's lost his daughter, and he feels like he's lost his granddaughter because she's locked up. And to be able to wrap his head around the fact that his daughter might have murdered I'm sorry, his granddaughter might have murdered his daughter. I mean, that's a lot, right? So I think part of it is obviously denial. The other part of it is just lack of knowledge about how this works. And you do not need a murder weapon to get a conviction. In many cases, we don't have a murder weapon, or we do, but we can't place it in the suspect's hand. Like there's no gunshot residue on her. She could very well, Safia, have been involved, but not have been the trigger man, right?
I mean, we don't know. I feel seems like the grandfather is just as eager to find out what this mountain of evidence is, just like all of us. He says, "Yeah, I think it's mostly circumstantial." I mean, you're right. I feel bad for this guy. I think he's just really hoping for the best in terms of like his granddaughter didn't do this. But yeah, he's also confused. Exactly what is it? I mean,
Yeah.
be that bold, Sarah, though, as prosecutors to say it's a mountain of evidence. I mean, there's got to be something. I mean, short of a smoking gun, it must be huge, right?
Well, a huge to charge her with this offense, try her as an adult, and hold her behind bars pending trial. I mean, the judge has to have something substantial in front of him that amounts
Very
to
damning.
probable cause. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing that I think the grandfather, the point that he made that I think is worth talking about as well is the internet searches. You mentioned that earlier, Safia, that she had searched on Google for murders. Now, we don't know what, like murder, like before. First of all, we need to know when she conducted these searches. We need to know what she searched for. Google searches by themselves are not damning necessarily. There are times where they are damning, but it matters when the search was done and what the search terms were. So if she's searching about murdering, using a gun, getting away with it, covering up, what kind of materials to buy to cover it up, whatever that's related to the planning, right? That's clear premeditation, and that's terrible for her. But if the searches were done after the fact in a high profile case in a community that, where the highest crime is like theft, in Carroll County, I mean, she's a 17-year-old looking for the killer, right? And she wants to see the public perception out there. She wants to see what the investigation is, where it's at, what Carroll County's saying about it. So again, I don't think in and of itself a Google search is necessarily bad, but it can be, right?
I completely agree. But I think that if prosecutors are going this bold and this hard, I mean, my thought is that this is all stuff that was premeditated in order to go to those charges, right?
Yeah.
Like there's elements you have to meet for those charges.
Yeah.
So these are searches that I'm thinking allegedly occurred before. If there are searches, like you said, we don't quite know. This is all conjecture at this point. We don't really know. And until that comes out, we're kind of in the same holding pattern that the grandfather is.
Yeah. And I mean, I think most of our followers and viewers know this because you love crime. But these days, I mean, when we talk about a digital footprint, every move you make is on your telephone. Most people I know don't change their default setting away from location monitoring. There's location for accuracy of calling an Uber, for, using your Google Maps. You have to have that on, right? And that is also being recorded, in your phone. And, all those, every step, every move, it's like that police song, every move you make, is being watched in a way when the right time or the wrong time occurs and they need to look at your phone. Everything is at their fingertips. Getting your Google searches, oh my God, in 5 minutes, issuing a subpoena to Google and boom, it comes back with everything you've searched for in your search history. It's just, I don't know. I mean, I think, look, a 17-year-old, I would think knows this stuff because it's their era, this sort of all this technology. But I don't know. Just again, this is all speculation, but I'm saying this based on reports, Safia. I've also read that there was some evidence of domestic abuse in the household. In other words, apparently there was domestic abuse between mom and dad, and the young child who was at the time 2, not 5, had witnessed it. And that there were some things said about abuse in the house to Sarah's biological father. So there might be some also additional evidence of motive there if in fact Sarah's connected with this murder. And the other thing I want to bring up is that the mom and the stepdad both have very robust criminal rap sheets. They were they convicted of drug-related crimes as recently as 2022. This is a fact that I can say with certainty. And of course, that matters because one of the suspicions that Mr. Nolan, the grandfather, has, and that I have, frankly, is that in a high-profile case, in just after 4 months, which is not a long time for murder investigation, they arrested Sarah. Did they really rule out all the suspects, right? That is my concern here. Maybe they did, but I think the grandfather's correct in his concern about that, given that the parents, had some background. Anyway, Dave and Safia, we lost Dave, but Safia, thank you so much for joining me. And to our viewers, thank you so much for joining. Look at this beautiful studio. This is our new home. And so I hope that you tune in every week to Serving Justice. And until next time, the defense rests.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.